Hello, I'm Oliver Colling, and this is the My 70s TV Childhood Quiz. A very warm welcome back to the best fortnightly quiz in podcast land that features questions based on the world-renowned My 70s TV Childhood podcast. Obviously, it is also the only quiz based on the show, but that's fine by me. For anybody joining us for the first time, then a very special welcome to you. As always, it's just for fun, and I will be posing you 20 questions over 4 rounds of varying difficulty, drawing on your knowledge of 1970s UK TV. Now, I've had some feedback from listeners who say that whilst they don't mind me droning on a bit on the podcast, they would rather cut straight to the chase on the quiz. So bearing that in mind, let's go on to the quiz without further ado. So grab yourself a pen and paper and your favourite beverage. It's tea again for me this week. And we shall begin at the beginning with round 1. And this round is called A Land Down Under. And in honour of the British and Irish Lions rugby team being in Oz at the same time that this episode is due to be released, it's all about Australian TV shows, which we saw some of in the UK during the 1970s. Question 1. What was the name of the hospital in The Young Doctors? Question 2. In the Aussie series The Outsiders, what relationship was Pete Jarrett to Charlie Cole? Question 3. Who was regularly seen on screen during the 1970s as Australia's famous housewife superstar Dame Edna Everage? Question 4. Long-running Aussie soap The Sullivans followed the family of the same name through the 1930s and 40s. In which Australian city did the Sullivans live? And question 5. In the 1970s detective show Boney, what was the name of the title character, known as Boney for short? So how was that? Not too tricky, I hope. So let's move on to round 2. And this is our marathon or Fil Rouge round, where we look back at subjects covered in previous episodes of the podcast. So regular listeners may have a slight advantage. You never know. Question 1. In September 2023, we look back at Tomorrow's World. What was the name of the presenter on the show who'd been a Second World War Spitfire pilot? Question 2. The US cartoon series Wait Till Your Father Gets Home featured in January 2025. What was the name of the father in the title of the show? Question 3. In June this year, I shared memories of Opportunity Knocks. What was the name of the act from my hometown, Warrington, which I mentioned in the episode as they appeared on the show and won? And I think they won more than once. And question 4. Way back in September 2020, we covered Hector's House. Which country did the animated series originally come from? So where did Hector's House originally come from? And question 5. We've looked back at public information films several times over the life of the podcast, including The Green Cross Man. Who played the Green Cross Man? And, for a bonus, what was his most famous acting role? So who was the Green Cross Man and what was his most famous acting role? And there's a clue, it wasn't the Green Cross Man. And then we're halfway through already. Now, our next round is the one which listeners tell me they like the most. It's our Spin the Wheel and Name That Tune round, where we combine all sorts of technology by first spinning our specially constructed Wheel of Fate at enormous expense to choose a year from the 1970s, which I'll then feed into our state-of-the-art AI-powered theme tune generator, which will randomly select 5 theme tunes from shows which were first shown on UK TV in that year. Confused? Well, just play along and I'm sure you'll get the idea pretty quickly. Okay, so first of all, let's spin the wheel. Round and round and round she goes. Where she stops, nobody knows. And we've landed on 1971. Okay, let me input that into our AI-powered theme tune generator. And right, let's have our first theme tune. Quite straightforward, that one. Now, theme tune 2, I think, is a bit more of a challenging one. Not easy. But theme tune 3 should be a bit better known, I think. And here's theme tune number 4.
How will you make it on your own? This world is awfully big. Girl, this time you're all alone. But it's time you started living. It's time you let someone else do some giving. Love is all around, no need to waste it. You can have it down, why don't you take it? You might just make it after all. You might just make it after all.
And then to finish, here's a great one, which I know we have had in a previous quiz, but I love it as a theme tune, so we're having it again.
Down in the meadow where the windmills free, in the middle of a field stands a lightning tree. Its limbs all torn from the day it was born, for the tree was born in a thunderstorm. Grow, grow, the lightning tree, it's never too late for you and me. Grow, grow, the lightning tree, never give in too easily. Down in the meadow where the windmills rise, the lightning struck in the middle of the night.
And so we're on to our last round already. And this is our TV Times round, where I can ask you any 70s TV related trivia questions I like. And I usually do. Okay, let's go. Question 1. How many firemen are there in the Trumpton Fire Brigade? Question 2. The Brothers featured the dramatic world of a family-owned road haulage business. And it was pretty dramatic, I have to say, even though it doesn't sound like that. What was the surname of the family featured in The Brothers? Question 3. In which US TV show did Herb Edelman play a 40-year-old science teacher who inadvertently drank from the fountain of youth and kept inconveniently turning into his 12-year-old self, played by Robbie Rist? Question 4. What were the names of the 2 audience members in The Muppet Show who heckled the cast from a box? And finally, question 5. What was the small, bald-headed man who regularly got slapped on the head by Benny Hill? And that's it. I think I'm expecting a few high scores this week. Now, if you want to brag about your score or demonstrate how awfully you've done, you can do so by leaving a comment on our blog at www.my70stvchildhood.com or on one of our many social media sites. Alternatively, you could drop me a line to quiz@my70stvchildhood.com. Okay, so before we get to this week's answers, let's go back to last time's bonus question. Now, I ask you this. According to the website radios-tv.co.uk, how much was the rental on a 19-inch Baird 705 colour TV from Radio Rentals in 1970? And the answer was 25 shillings a week, which sounds like quite a lot of money to me, but I suppose if you wanted to be in the vanguard of colour TV watching, you had to pay for the privilege. Well done if you got that right, and I think I said to within 5 shillings either way. Now, This week's question is about a popular US import. In the US super soap Dallas, JR and Bobby Ewing's brother Gary appeared early on in the show. He was rather the black sheep of the family, although Miss Ellie's loved him, as his mother often would do. And he was also the father of Lucy Ewing, remember her? Well, after lots of scheming and intrigue by JR, he remarried his first wife, Val, and left to live happy ever after in California. Well, it would have been happy ever after until Lorimar decided to launch a Dallas spin-off featuring the newly remarried couple. What was the name of the spin-off series? If you know the answer, you can let me know using the methods we mentioned earlier. Right, let's go on to this time's answers. Round 1, our Land Down Under round. What was the name of the hospital in The Young Doctors? That was the Albert Memorial Hospital. Although it didn't have much medical drama, it always seemed to be about the turbulent private lives of the doctors and nurses. But anyway, question 2. In the Aussie drama series The Outsiders, what relationship was Pete Jarrett to Charlie Cole? And if you remember the show, Pete was Charlie's grandson. Question 3. Who was regularly seen on TV in the 1970s as Australia's famous housewife superstar Dame Edna Everage? I can't even say it. And that was Barry Humphries. Question 4. Long-running Aussie soap The Sullivans. Followed the family of the same name in the 1930s and 40s, but where did the Sullivans live? They lived in Melbourne. And question 5. In the 1970s detective drama Boney, what was the name of the title character known as Boney for short? Now, he was actually known as Detective Inspector, but that wasn't obviously part of his name. He was actually called Napoleon Bonaparte. So well done if you got that one. Okay, round 2, our Fil Rouge or marathon round. What was the name of the presenter of Tomorrow's World who'd been a Second World War Spitfire pilot? And that was Raymond Baxter. Question 2. What was the name of the father in the title role of Wait Till Your Father Gets Home? That was Harry Boyle. Question 3. Now, this is a tricky one if you haven't listened to the podcast. What was the name of the act from my hometown, Warrington, who won on Opportunity Knocks that I mentioned in the episode? And that was the Warrington Youth Band. And question 4. What country did Hector's house originate from? And Hector's house originally came from France. Question 5. Who played the Green Cross Man? And for a bonus point, what was his most famous acting role? Well, the Green Cross Man was played by Dave Prowse, who later played Darth Vader in Star Wars, although the character was voiced by the American actor James Earl Jones. All right, on to round 3, our Name That Tune round. Now, the first one always takes me back to sort of Sunday nights on BBC, and that was the Onedin Line. Second theme tune I thought was a bit tricky this week. This was for a sitcom that only lasted one series, and the sitcom was called That's Your Funeral, about funny goings on in an undertaker's. Doesn't sound the most promising, but there you go. Theme tune 3. Now, many of you, I hope, got this one. That was the theme tune to Bless This House. And I can hear Sid James sniggering in my ear just at the moment. Question 4. This was the theme tune to the Mary Tyler Moore Show, which was very, very popular in the US and had a reasonable following over here as well. And theme tune 5, well, I couldn't not put this in for 1971. That was the wonderful theme tune to Follyfoot. All right, on to our last round, our TV Times round. Now, how many firemen were there in the Trumpton Fire Brigade? Now, the answer is 7. And if you got 6, I'm afraid you're not right. Because who have we got? We've got Pew, Barney McGrew, Cuthbert, Dibble, Grubb, and we've got Captain Flack as well. So the answer is 7. Question 2. In The Brothers, what was the name of the family? And the family in the dramatic world of road haulage was the Hammond family. Question 3. In which show did Herb Edelman play a 40-year-old science teacher who inadvertently drank from the fountain of youth and became his 12-year-old self, played by Robbie Rist? That was Big John, Little John. And question 4. What were the names of the 2 characters in the Muppet Show who heckled from the box? And they were Statler and Waldorf. And finally, who's the small, bald-headed man who regularly got slapped on the head by Benny Hill? That was the 4'11" Jackie Wright. So, how did you do? Are you celebrating striking oil like J.R. Ewing? Or has your well run dry? Whichever, I do hope you've enjoyed playing. We will be back next week with another episode of our regular podcast, and then again in a fortnight with our next quiz. Until then, take care, have fun, drink responsibly, and don't complain about the summer weather. See you soon, and do join us again soon for more from My 70s TV Childhood and the My 70s TV Childhood quiz.